This tea is not Yorkshire tea. I don't want anybody organising a pylon. This is Red Bush from glorious South Africa. Amandla, the best tea in the world, but it's quite a nice cup. I've had to abandon most of what I was going to say to you in these first few minutes because of two very dramatic developments in the Russian-Ukraine story. The first of those is as yet unverified, but consists of revelations from the Russian Ministry of Defense that documents and other evidence have been found very close to the Russian border of a full-scale biological weapons laboratory that was manufacturing and stockpiling weapons of mass destruction in the Ukraine. If ever there was evidence that the Ukrainian people and their country are being used and abused by Nato, which is really the United States, the Dutch army doesn't concern anyone very much. Neither the Italian nor the Norwegian. These are all lipstick on the pig of American domination. The Ukraine has been used and abused by American politicians, particularly in the Democratic Party's top elite. The Biden family, the Kerry family have their fingers, not just their fingers in the till. They're in the till up to the elbows. They're family members working in Ukraine's oil and gas sector, hoping to achieve a bonanza if they can develop the extensive oil and gas assets which lie in the seas around the peninsula. That peninsula is what this war is really about, that and oil and gas. Russia has cut off the main pipeline taking Russian gas to Germany. 40% of Germany's supply is now non-existent. Germans will have to choose between heating and eating. And if they choose heating, their gas prices, having already tripled, will triple again. In fact, the ripples of the sanctions taken by the European Union at the demand of the United States are going to devastate the European economy. Russia, meanwhile, has adjusted as it said it would, selling all the gas that it would have sold to Europe directly to China, selling all of the wheat that it would otherwise have sold to Europe to China and Pakistan and others. As to its commodities, vital in manufacturing in the western part of Europe, you can forget about those. That commodity shortage will start to see shelves emptying and factories closing down. This entire imbroglio is about the United States' intention to contain and confront the Russian Federation. All the rest is just kabuki theater. But the revelation that biological weapons were being stockpiled and being manufactured on the Russian border puts this entire story in a very different light. For younger viewers, and to my dismay, it turns out there are some who know nothing about the US-UK invasion and occupation of Iraq. I must point out to all of you that the existence of a biological weapons program, you'll remember Colin Powell at the UN with his little vial filled with what turned out to be washing up liquid. How appropriate was that? The entire basis of the invasion and occupation of Iraq, which killed 1 million people and which sent ISIS and Al-Qaeda cascading around the globe, starting earthquakes that have not finished and will not finish in the lifetime of most of the people watching this show this evening. The weapons of mass destruction hoax was a lie. It was entirely a manufactured lie, as anyone of a certain age or anyone with an inquiring brain already knows. If it turns out that it was not Iraq that was manufacturing and stockpiling biological weapons, but the United States of America and on Russia's border, then everything will change forever. Not just a flagrant breach of international law, not just a breach of every chemical and biological weapons convention signed by the United States and Ukraine, but a casus belli that no sane person in the world would dispute. If a country hostile to you is manufacturing and amassing an arsenal of biological weapons just across your border, no country in the world would fail to make every precaution necessary to neutralize that deadly threat. Do you know what was in the biological weapons laboratory? Anthrax, the plague, cholera, yellow fever, the whole 9 yards of deadly biological weapons. There can be no conceivable excuse, no hiding place from these revelations. And if they turn out to be, as the Ministry of Defense promises that they will, then the United States will never be able to show its face vis-a-vis Syria or anywhere else on this deadly, mortally deadly subject of biological weapons. The other new development is that in the last couple of hours, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, of the United States of America, has said that the US will green light, that means they possess the green light, any NATO country that wishes to fly warplanes from their territory to Ukraine for use by the Ukrainian armed forces. The problem is that there are no airfields left usable in Ukraine. All military airfields have been destroyed. The entire military infrastructure of Ukraine has been destroyed. That means that any such jets would have to be flown presumably by Ukrainian pilots from air bases in neighboring NATO countries. The Russian government has said that any such development would mean that the country involved would be treated as a direct participant in the conflict and would be attacked. So to these bird brains, many of them experts on COVID just a couple of weeks ago, who are now expert in geopolitics and military strategy, calling for a no-fly zone to be imposed by NATO over Ukrainian airspace, must understand this, that Russia will not just seek to shoot these NATO aircraft out of the sky, but furthermore, the military bases in NATO countries from which these warplanes flew will be a legitimate target and will be destroyed. And then we will have a European war, an open Russia-NATO war, because Article 5 of the NATO Charter treats any attack on any NATO country as an attack upon all of them. That means we'll be at war between Russia and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And that war may very well quickly become a nuclear war. You thought that this was just a dark cloud, a fearful, dark cloud, until Blinken's statement today. But now it is bathed in sunlight, in its obvious peril for all of us. So those of you who were ready to pay £2 a gallon for your petrol, ready for your tripled gas prices to triple again, may have to now recalibrate. That not only will your economy be destroyed in a European war, it may very well be that all of us will be destroyed in a nuclear war. Nothing could be more serious than this. Blinken's statement could not be a more serious escalation than this. The Biden administration, having used and abused the people of Ukraine for the last 8 years, may very well have guaranteed the end of Ukraine as a sovereign, independent country, and maybe the end of many a country in the region and beyond. Some people say to me I should be trying to stop the war in Ukraine. I've been trying to stop the war in Ukraine every single day for the last 8 years, because the war in Ukraine did not begin 11 days ago. It began in 2014, 8 years ago, when the elected Ukrainian government was overthrown in a US-organized coup. The parliament set on fire, the president scampering for his life, and members of the Ukrainian parliament at gunpoint, being forced to sign into law a variety of anti-Russian language measures which guaranteed that the people of eastern Ukraine would reject the coup and seek to defend their language and their culture. Every single day for the last 8 years, the Ukrainian armed forces, spearheaded by their fascist militias, evidence of whom is so overwhelming, it is stunning to me that so many people in the West merely avert their eyes. They merely turn away. You show them the swastikas, the jackboots, the SS insignia, the Hitler salutes, the statues to the people who massacred Polish and Ukrainian Jews in overwhelming number. You show them that the IKEA store of all stores, if you don't know the history of IKEA, look it up, is situated on Stepan Bandera Avenue in the capital city of Kiev. Bandera is the spiritual father, the arch collaborator, the Jew killer, the man who massacred Jews from Poland and Ukraine and then put the rest on the trains to Auschwitz, where they were industrially gassed by the Nazi filth. Anyone who imagines that Russia, a country which lost 26 million people to the Nazi barbarians, would be sanguine about the presence of, just across their border, the massed ranks of fascism, is an idiot, an ignorant fool who didn't know it, or an idiot who did know it, but who thought that nonetheless this could be tolerable. We are now funding, Germany is now funding and arming Nazis in Ukraine. What could possibly go wrong? The truth of the matter is these two new developments, breaking this day, take us into a dark and potentially catastrophic period of this 8-year war in Ukraine. One last word. the United States government at the level of undersecretaries of state have gone to Venezuela, Caracas, to try to kiss and make up with Nicolas Maduro and the forces loyal to the late Hugo Chavez. After having destroyed Venezuela for years, sending assassination squads to murder Maduro, the United States, alarmed at the fantastic levels of inflation now visible in the American economy, are trying to persuade Venezuela to abandon Russia and China and return to the pre-Chavez days as a banana republic under the tutelage of the United States. I'm sure that Maduro will tell them where to go. But it's a measure of how dirty realpolitik can be. In fact, people who predicted the crashing and burning of the Russian economy forgot one thing. They forgot China. They forgot that China will be the biggest economy in the whole world very, very soon. It's 2022. They say it will be before 2030. I'm predicting to you it will be before 2025. Everything Russia produces, China needs. The Visa cards that cut off in Moscow have been immediately replaced by a Union card operating through China's banking system. The strategic alliance between Russia and China changes everything. And when you factor in that Iran will, in the next couple of days, be back on the international stage, the JCPOA reinstated, sanctions on Iran lifted. When you factor in that India, the second most populous country in the world, is closely aligned with Russia in this terrible conflict in the Ukraine, then you begin to see not just that Ukraine is dividing between East and West, but the world is dividing between East and West. And our problem, those of us who live in the West, is that the sun is rising in the East.